So right off the bat, 2 wheels and probably tires. These will most likely be upgraded to the bronze ones. I think they're actually called brass monkeys. That tire's pretty well split. I was actually kind of nervous putting air in it, that bead would separate because it's ripped pretty well through. That TPMS sensor doesn't seem to want to accept a lot of air, so I'm assuming the valve's probably no good. We'll have to pull that out. This one's actually bent up really bad right here, and it's actually cracked on the inside. You can actually see that big split, so that's, I don't know, maybe 6 inches worth of crack on the inside of that wheel. So that one doesn't even hold air. Go around to the front of the car. Most of the stuff in front actually didn't turn out too bad. This cooler is obviously not 100% sure if it's going to be leaking or not, but there is no coolant for the auxiliary coolers. So I don't know if that's going to be leaking. I kind of think it is. Either way, they're not super expensive. The condenser I originally thought could be saved, but some of those are pretty deep. Plus, why not, right? It's a Hellcat. Underneath it's kind of where the majority of the damage was. It missed most of that stuff, but the cross member's shot, the steering rack's shot. You can actually see here it actually ripped the welds on it and then bent it all up, pushed it back into the oil pan. So that's actually the oil pickup sticking out of the pan. It's bent up really bad. You can actually see into the bottom of the motor. You can see the windage tray. It's actually part of the oil pan gasket. That steering rack is completely shattered. It's really overall not horrible for what it is, especially for what we got the car for. Cross member took the brunt of the hit. I'm actually kind of surprised the airbags didn't go off to rip that cross member up like that. You can see it's cracked there. And actually on this side of the lower frame rail, you can actually see it pivoted from where it was supposed to be straight. You can kind of see the marks on that frame rail and how off-center that is. You can actually see up into the motor here. Let's see if I can get you a better shot. So that oil pan took a pretty decent smack. Motor turns over free. Doesn't look like there's any kind of grit or anything in there. I would imagine with an impact like this, the car probably stopped running or was running for a very short period of time. So I'm not really concerned about bearing wear or the motor being shot. But at the same time, you never really know. So we'll have to just get it all together. Replace the cross member, replace the pan, fill it up with AMSOIL, and try to run it and see kind of what's what with it. If it does knock or it is making noise, then the motor will have to come out, go to the machine shop. They'll have to kind of assess what's going on with it, and we'll kind of go from there. As far as paint stuff, it kind of almost looks like you hit a wire guardrail. You get all this stuff up in here. It's not really dented, but it's scratched pretty good. Passenger side headlights pretty well scratched up. I thought it could be savable, but it doesn't really look like it. You can see all this stuff. And then down here on the headlight itself, maybe that would sand out, maybe it wouldn't. I'm gonna have to look at what a used set would cost in pretty good condition. You got more of this kind of like scraping wire guardrail stuff here. Goes all the way up the A-pillar, stops right around here, a little bit onto the roof. Really not too bad though. You guys saw the interior. Had to crawl through the trunk, which kind of sucked to kind of get power to it. This thing was kind of a nightmare getting it in here. Body's actually pretty straight though. It's really not bad. It's missing the antenna, or the little cap for it, little shark fin. I'm sure that'll be an absorbent amount of money. The back of the mirror here you can see is pretty scratched up as well. The fender's got a little bit of it on it. So I think we're probably going to paint this car from the rear doors forward. Past the sunroof. It's dark, doesn't really look like there's metallic in it, so it should blend pretty well. If not, then we'll spray the whole car. Body shop is actually really good group of guys. They're gonna take care of me quite a bit on it. It's gonna need the inner fender liner, all the splash shields, brackets. The rear bumper actually popped out a little bit. Right here the clips are all busted, and then in this corner where the bolt is that holds it in, it's actually ripped. and it actually chipped the taillight a little bit in back. Right here, if you can see that. So I apologize for the video quality. The camera got left at home today, so the Galaxy's taken over for camera duties for the day. So the goal for today is to kind of pull some of this stuff apart, pull some of the suspension stuff apart, see if we can get the majority of that cross member ready to come down. It's only 4 major bolts. The big thing is going to be the engine mounts, so that stays in place. So I actually have an engine cradle that's for a topside holder. So see if we can rig something up to hold the engine in place while this cross member comes down. So you got your 4 main bolts, one right there, and there's one in the back, up in there. Steering rack's obviously got to come out. That'll be pretty easy considering it's pretty much busted off. The big thing is going to be these all the control arm hardware, because everything's so smushed. So if you can see, this control arm comes in, and this cross member that's all tweaked is bent. So I can get to this bolt, but this one's going to suck to get a wrench on to be able to actually pull that bolt out. So what I might end up having to do is actually cut this cross member. I'd really like to avoid using a grinder, considering the oil pan's open. I don't really want to get sparks and metal shavings in there, so I might have to break out the Sawzall or get the big hammer and kind of bend that back a little bit. Maybe just clearance this a little bit in here so I can get to that bolt, because it's pretty well smushed in there. Maybe I can get a wrench in there, or get a cheapo Harbor Freight wrench and put it on the bench grinder and grind it down enough just to hold that nut so I can get the bolt out. This side doesn't look too bad. Well, it's actually kind of the same thing, but I have a little more clearance in here up top to get to it because it's all bent back. The rest of it doesn't look too bad. The tie rods are shot, so this whole rack will just have to be new. It's scraped up pretty good, and it's bent, and considering that's what controls your steering, I'd really like to avoid an issue down the road. You can see this is actually part of your gearbox that comes from the steering shaft. That's just busted right off the rack. So the rack shouldn't be too bad to take apart, take out, see if we can get some of this stuff out of here, and kind of go from there.